morning from the CNN newsroom in Atlanta.
Welcome to Early Edition for Friday, August 25th.
I'm Andrea Arsenault. Good morning.
I'm Bob Kane. Past the hour. Harry Wu is back in the United States. China expelled the human rights activist late yesterday, just hours after a court there convicted him of spying and sentenced him to 15 years. More on Wu's homecoming from correspondent Greg Lefebvre.
Humble and humbled by the huge homecoming, Harry Wu had no idea the world was watching and waiting for his release.
I didn't know so many things happened in out of China, because it's about 2 months and there's no music, no radio, no newspaper, and even sometimes the Chinese officers say American can do nothing. So I didn't know what's happened outside.
With a friend supporting his bad back, Wu said while he was in jail, he seemed ready to die, but not be defeated.
I think they can only destroy a man, but I don't think they can defeat someone.
The Chinese imprisoned Wu for 19 years in the 60s and 70s, committing him to forced labor in the Laogai prison system. An accident in a prison coal mine broke his back. Released to the U.S. in 1985, he returned 4 times, undercover, to document human rights violations in the Chinese prison system. Entering for a 5th time last June on a false passport, he was jailed for spying. His 2 months imprisonment might have lasted longer, but for 3 women. His wife, Ching Li Wu, who kept a very public vigil, First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, due in Beijing next month for a women's rights conference, and California Senator Dianne Feinstein, who has a long history of diplomacy with China, dating back to her days as mayor of San Francisco.
I believe this release was done as a gesture of friendship to the United States.
The Chinese government Thursday announced it had convicted Wu of spying, sentenced him to 15 years, and ordered him expelled from the country.
You all know how happy I am now. And I want to thank all the people who helped with the rescue of my husband.
Wu's friends and fans staged a large welcoming ceremony at San Francisco airport. But after 2 months of jail, a non-public trial, and a long flight home, Wu chose instead to head straight to his house in the San Francisco suburb of Milpitas. First on his agenda, treatment for his back. Wu's associates say he risked his life to expose abuses in the Chinese prison system, accusations the Chinese vigorously deny. But when China convicted him of stealing state secrets, his associates took it as an admission that Wu was right. Greg Lefebvre, CNN, San Francisco.
Well, the White House is welcoming Wu's return home, acknowledging that the move has eased strained U.S.-Chinese relations slightly. Some diplomats are saying the move opens the way for First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton to attend next month's United Nations International Women's Conference in Beijing. There's still some opposition in Congress, but Mrs. Clinton is eager to take part. Both the U.S. and China publicly deny that Wu's case was linked to the First Lady's trip, and both deny any deal was made.
Activist Harry Wu is back in the United States following a 2-month ordeal in China, and he says he's proud to be an American. Wu arrived at his California home last night after he was expelled from China following a conviction on spying charges. He was arrested in June during a trip to expose human rights abuses. Wu says he had little information from the outside world while he was in jail.
It's about 2 months and there's no music, no radio, no newspaper, and even sometimes the Chinese officers say American can do nothing. So I didn't know what's happened outside. And now I learned it's so different and the change is so large.
Wu spent 19 years in Chinese labor camps before immigrating to the United States and becoming a citizen.
The release of Harry Wu is, of course, expected to improve the strained relations between the U.S. and China. That's part of what was straining them. It also seems to open the door for First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton to go to Beijing next month. Claire Shipman has more on that.
The Chinese government expelled Harry Wu just hours after convicting the human rights activist of espionage and sentencing him to 15 years in prison. He arrived in San Francisco, where a very relieved Mrs. Wu awaited. U.S. officials are also delighted. In a statement, White House Press Secretary Mike McCurry said, "The action removes an obstacle to improving relations between the United States and China." More specifically, diplomats say it now opens the way for Mrs. Clinton to attend next month's UN conference on women in Beijing. Administration officials tell CNN she'll go, but there's been no announcement yet. If she attends, she'll still face criticism from human rights activists and others who think it will send the wrong signal about China's record on human rights. But many disagree.
If Hillary Clinton were to go, and I would hope that she could go, it would be because she's standing in solidarity with her sisters around the world, not because she is condoning the practices of the host country.
Both U.S. and Chinese officials have publicly denied Wu's release and Mrs. Clinton's attendance are linked, or that any deal was cut.
But there has been, to the best of my knowledge, no deal or anything the way that you describe it, no.
But behind the scenes, U.S. diplomats say Wu's detention was the biggest stumbling block to the First Lady's trip. Experts note, though, that the Chinese were clearly looking to the bigger picture as well.
I think they have a genuine desire to try and improve the currently frayed relationship they have with the U.S. And if a smooth trip by Hillary Clinton to Beijing were to help things out, they'd probably view that as positive. But I think they view that there are a lot more serious things in the relationship that need to be fixed, as well as a visit by the First Lady.
Officials say that with Wu's release, talks this weekend in Beijing between U.S. Undersecretary of State Peter Tarnov and Chinese officials will be more productive. The U.S. is hoping to discuss a range of issues, including nuclear testing and trade. The Chinese would no doubt like word that Mrs. Clinton is coming, and among other things, they're looking for a much-coveted Washington summit invitation for their president.